Uh, in in the last class, we talked about different classifications of cost, classification by element, by nature, by function, by behavior. And in by behavior, we talked about the semi-variable cost. Semi-variable cost was a cost that was combination of fixed cost and variable cost, a cost which shows the characteristics of both fixed and variable cost was known as semi-variable cost, right? Now, in today's class, we will talk about a method that is known as Hilo method, which is used to split that semi-variable cost into its fixed and variable element. Okay. So
Okay.
now semi-variable cost, the formula for semi-variable cost would be what? It will be total cost is equal to total fixed cost plus variable cost, because semi-variable cost is a combination of fixed cost and variable cost, right?
Yeah.
Now, variable cost, you can further open its formula. Variable cost, total variable cost will be variable cost per unit multiply by number of units. Okay, so you can open up that formula also. Fixed cost, because fixed cost is, it's fixed. Like I talked about the rent is a fixed cost, so you take it in total. Okay. But for variable
Okay.
cost, you can take it as per unit and then you can multiply it with the number of units and you will get the total variable cost. So this is the formula for the total semi-variable cost. Total cost is equal to total fixed cost plus variable cost per unit times number of units or activity level or level of activity or production units. These all means the same thing. Okay. So
Okay.
now let's start. Now there are four steps that you need to follow to calculate uh, to split the semi-variable cost into fixed and variable element. Now the number first step is select the highest and lowest activity levels. In the question, you will be given with the range of different activity levels and cost at those activity levels. You have to choose highest and lowest activity levels. You have to choose which activity level is the highest one and which is the lowest one, and their relevant cost. And what are the cost at those activity levels? For example, what is the cost at lowest activity level and what is the cost at highest activity level? So the first step is you have to identify two things. Number one, the highest and lowest activity levels. Number two, the cost at those highest and lowest activity levels. Okay.
Okay.
In second step, then we have to calculate variable cost per unit. Variable cost per unit formula is cost at high level of activity. You will see what is the cost at high level of activity. Okay, minus cost at low level of activity. In the question, it will be given to you. You will see what is the cost at low level of activity and you will divide it with their relevant activity levels. Okay, you will divide it with high level of activity less low level of activity. So in this way, you will get your variable cost per unit. Once you have got your variable cost per unit, you will use this formula to calculate fixed cost. Okay, you will substitute the fixed cost from this formula. Now, the total cost formula was fixed cost plus variable cost, right? So if you want to
Yeah.
calculate fixed cost, variable cost is adding on this side of equation. On the other side of equation, it will be deducted. So the formula for fixed cost will become total cost minus variable cost, right? So
Yeah.
from this formula, you have to substitute the fixed cost. Okay.
Okay.
And finally, when you will get the fixed cost from step 3, when you will get the variable cost from step 2, then you can calculate total cost at any level of activity by using the formula for total cost, that is total fixed cost plus variable cost per unit times level of activity. Clear?
Oh, so what's the difference between total cost at activity level and the total cost?
The total cost, the cost that we will be taking at the activity level, the relevant activity level, it is total cost at activity level. I will tell you this by, by giving you an example. Okay, then it will be clear to you. I will tell you by giving it an example. Let's move on to the example and then you can understand the things better. Now look, this is the example, this is the illustration that we have to do. Now the activity levels are given to me, the cost is given to me. Now the first step was what? We have to identify the highest and lowest activity levels. So can you please tell me what are the highest and lowest activity levels?
400 is the highest and 200 is the lowest.
Yes, yes. And the second step, the first step, second part was we have to identify cost at those activity levels. So at highest, the
Yeah.
cost is 9,000. At lowest, the cost is 7,000.
Then
Now, moving on to step two, we have to calculate variable cost per unit. So let's calculate it. So variable cost per unit will be cost at high level of activity, that is 9,000, minus cost at low level of activity, that is 7,000, divided by high level of activity, that is 400, less the lowest activity level, that is 200. So what will be the answer? It will be, I think so, 10 per unit, right? 2000
yeah.
divided by 200. So variable cost per unit is 10. So we are done with step 2. Now the step 3 that you were talking about, that what is the difference between this and this? Now let me explain it to you with an example. Now when we will be calculating the fixed cost in step 3, the formula for fixed cost was what? Fixed cost was total cost minus variable cost. And variable cost, we can open up the formula. The formula for total variable cost is variable cost per unit times number of units. Okay. Now the question here is that that variable cost is 10 per unit, right? But you don't know what number of units you should take or what total cost you should take, because you are not provided with that, right? You don't know what to take here, which cost to take here, and which number of units to take here. Okay. So for this, you need to understand this point, that if if you are taking highest cost outside this, if you are taking highest cost in the place of total cost, for example, I am taking 9,000 in the place of total cost, then the number of units inside the bracket, you have to take those relevant units at that cost. Okay. So if you are taking 9,000 outside the bracket, then inside the bracket, the number of units you should take should be the relevant to that cost, that are 400. Okay. So
Okay.
variable cost per unit is 10 and number of units we will take 400. So it will give you the fixed cost of 9,000 minus 4,000, 5,000. Now you can also take the lowest one. You can also take the lowest cost. For example, you do it by yourself. You take lowest cost outside, that is 7,000, and inside you take the lowest activity level, 200. And tell me what will be the answer of fixed cost. Calculate it by yourself and let me know what will be the answer.
Is it 5,000?
Yes, it will be the same. So it does not matter which cost you are taking in the place of total cost. But you need to remember just one thing, that if you are taking highest total cost outside the bracket, then inside the bracket, the number of units you should take should be the relevant to those costs. Okay. Should be relevant to those costs. So if you are taking 9,000 total cost, then you should take the units 400. If you are taking 7,000 total cost, you should take the units 200. You just need to remember this thing, that you need to take relevant number of units inside the bracket.
Okay.
That's it. The answer will be same in any case. Okay.
Okay.
So this was step 3. Now finally step 4. We have to calculate. Now you know what is the fixed cost, right? You know the fixed cost is 5,000. You know that the variable cost per unit is $10. Now you can calculate cost at any level of activity. For example, he has asked me in the question to calculate cost at 350 units. So I know the formula for total cost. The formula for total cost is fixed cost plus
Okay.
variable cost per unit times number of units, or multiply by number of units. Okay. So now fix,
Okay.
what was the fixed cost?
It's 5,000.
Yes. And what is the variable cost per unit?
10.
10. And at how many units you need to calculate the total cost?
350.
Yes, so you will put 350 here. So 5,000 plus 10 times 350, it will be 3,500. So the answer will be 8,500. So in this way, you can calculate the cost at any level of activity. Now, please let me know what will be the cost at 600 units. The formula is in front of you. Tell me what will be the total
Okay.
cost if output is 600 units.
Um, it's 11,000.
Yes, it will be 11,000. 6,000 plus 5,000, it will be 11,000. So this is the high-low method,
Yeah.
and these are the steps to do the high-low method. Clear? Any question?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Okay. So now let's do another example. So there it is. Now, okay. Now first tell me, what was the first step?
it's the highest and find out the highest and lowest. It's 50 and 26
Yes, and we have to find their relevant cost.
cost.
So at 50, the cost is this, and the lowest,
7,000.
yes. And now what's the step two?
It's where you find out the variable cost.
Per unit. Yes. And
Yeah.
what was the formula for that?
Cost of highest minus cost of lowest
Yes. Divided by?
by highest and lowest output. 50
Yes.
minus 26.
Yes. Now tell me what will be the answer.
Hmm, Wait a minute. $31.125.
31.125. Okay, let me confirm it also on my side.
7.
7310 minus 6566. It will give me
Sorry, sorry,
744.
sorry.
It's
It's
30.
31.
Yes, it's 31. It was 31. So it will be 31. So this is my variable cost per unit. And the next step, I have to calculate what? Fixed cost. And
Yeah.
formula for fixed cost was total cost minus variable cost per unit times number of units. Now, can you tell me how will you calculate the fixed cost? What will be you
Okay.
taking here in the place of total cost?
50. I'm taking the highest. 50 minus 31 into for 50.
Outside the brackets, you have to take the total
It's,
cost.
okay, okay. 7,310
Yes. Minus,
minus
yes,
31
yes,
into 50.
exactly. So tell me what will be the fixed cost?
It's it's 5760.
5760. So that's it. That is my answer because in this question he has just asked me to split the cost into fixed and variable components. Okay.
Okay.
Now take the lowest cost in the place of the highest and take the lowest units and let me know what is the answer of fixed cost.
Okay.
Now take the lowest one.
6566. Yeah, it's same
It's same. Okay.
5760.
It will be the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Now just another thing you need to keep in mind that how will you analyze whether this cost is a semi-variable cost or not? Because it can be confusing. It could be a variable cost. How will you get to know that this cost is semi-variable cost? So in the last class, I told you that variable cost had two characteristics. Okay. The number one was total cost increase with increase in units, and
With the
cost
level of activity.
and cost per unit remains same. Okay. So
Yeah.
these were the characteristics of variable cost. So if a cost possesses these two characteristics, we will say that this cost is a variable cost. But what if a cost is possessing only one characteristic, that the total cost is increasing with increase in the activity level, but cost per unit is not constant, is not same. So we will say that this cost is what? This cost is a semi-variable cost, because it is showing some characteristic of variable. It is not completely variable. So if a cost is not completely variable, it means it is a semi-variable cost. Okay.
Okay.
Now, here is an example in front of you. Now, look, in this question, it is clearly visible that while the activity level is increasing, the cost is increasing, right? So
Yeah.
it could be a variable cost. It could be a variable cost. But to check whether it is a variable cost, we will do what? We will divide cost with the units. So now divide this cost with this units and tell me what will be the answer of cost per unit. 6566 divided by 26.
It's 252.5.
252.5. Now do the same with this.
It's 217.
217. So look, this cost per unit is not constant, right? The cost per unit
Yeah.
is not constant. So in this way, you will identify that the cost is semi-variable. Okay, to remember this thing. This thing is very important, because in exam, he will in many questions, maybe he will not tell you that you should use high-low method. He will just give you the data, and he will ask you to, for example, this is a question. He will ask you to calculate the cost at 60 units, for example. Now, how will you know that? How will you calculate cost at 60 units? You will see whether it is whether it is a variable cost or is it a semi-variable cost. If it is a variable cost, then you will simply calculate its cost per unit because it is same, and you will just multiply it with the 60 units that was required. But if it is a
Okay.
semi-variable cost, then you have to do this complete procedure. You have to first calculate variable cost per unit, then you have to calculate fixed cost, and then while using this total cost formula, you will calculate the cost at 60 units. Okay, by taking activity level 60 here. Clear?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so this thing is important. You need to keep this thing in mind. Now moving on. Now what if you are using high-low method and there is a step up in a fixed cost? So if you are using high-low method and there is a step fixed cost, how will you deal with that? Now let's understand this concept. Sometimes fixed costs are only fixed with certain level of activity. The high-low method can still be used to estimate fixed and variable cost. We talked about this in the last class, that sometimes there is a step up in the cost, and that cost was known as step fixed cost. Okay, but
Mm.
still, if there is a step fixed cost, we can still identify. We can still split the cost into fixed and variable elements. How we can do that? He has given us the information right here. The first thing he has told us that choose the two activity level where the fixed costs remain unchanged. Now, this thing is very important. While looking at the question, you need to see at which two activity levels the cost is unchanged. Okay. You need to see at which two
Okay.
activity levels the cost is unchanged, at which two activity levels cost remain unchanged, and calculate the variable cost per unit and total fixed cost using the high-low technique. And while using those two activity levels, you need to calculate variable cost per unit. Now, when we were calculating variable cost per unit in the above example, we were just watching highest and lowest cost and their relevant activity levels. But when there is a step up in fixed cost given in the question, you have to identify those two activity levels where the fixed cost remains unchanged. Okay, where there is no change in fixed cost. Okay, either it's with step up or either it's without step up. The two activity levels should be either with step up element or without step up element. Okay, and use those two activity levels to calculate variable cost per unit, and then afterwards you need to make some adjustment while calculating fixed cost. Now let's understand with this example, then you will get the concept better. So what is the requirement? You have to calculate the total cost at an activity level of what? 5,000 units. Okay, now let's read the question. Please read the question.
An organization has the following total costs at three activity levels. Activity level 4,000, 6,000, and 7,500. Total cost for 4,000 is for $40,800, and for 6,000 is $50,000, and for 7,500 is 54,800. Variable cost per unit is constant. With this activity range, and there is a step up of 10 percentage in the total fixed cost where the activity level exceeds 5,500 units.
Okay, so one second here. Now he's saying that variable cost is same, but when your level of activity exceeds 5,500 units, the fixed cost is increased by 10%. There is a
10%.
step up of 10% in fixed cost. Now when there is a step up,
Yeah.
we need to identify those two activity levels in which fixed cost remains unchanged. Okay, now if there is a step up
Mm.
after 5,500 units, so it means that, for example, if fixed cost is 100%, for example, if fixed cost is 100%, then above 5,500 units it will become what? 110%, because there is 10% of step up in fixed cost, right? So after
Yeah.
5,500 units, like in 6,000 units, the fixed cost will be 110% because it's above 5,500 units. Similarly, in 7,500 units, the fixed cost will be above 100%. It will include the step up element. Okay, so it will be 110%.
Yeah.
This point is clear to you?
Yeah, clear.
Yes. Now, what was the first thing that we need to do? We have to choose those two activity levels where fixed cost remains unchanged. Either they are without step up, or either they are with step up element. But they should be same at those two activity levels. So can you please tell me what are those two activity levels where fixed cost remains unchanged?
It's 6,000 and 7,500.
Exactly, 6,000 and 7,500, because in these both activity levels there is a step up element and the fixed cost is same. Okay, it is with the step up, but it is
Yeah.
same. We have to just look whether it is same or not. Now, if there was no fixed cost, then we will simply do what we have done in the last what we had done in the last question. We would have take 7,500 units and 4,000 units. We would have taken their cost, and we would have to calculate variable cost per unit and all that stuff. Okay, but now, when there is
Yeah.
step up, you have to look at those activity levels in which the fixed cost is unchanged. Okay, so these are the two activity levels.
Okay.
Now we have to calculate variable cost per unit while using these two activity levels. So we will calculate variable cost per unit. So it will be, the highest one is 7,500 and cost is 54,800, and at this the cost is 50,000. So 54,800 minus 50,000, 7,500 minus 6,000. So please tell me what's the answer.
It's 3.2.
It's 3.2. And then now next thing is we have to calculate fixed costs. The formula was total cost minus variable cost per unit times number of units. So what will be the total cost that you will be taking here?
Wait a minute.
You can take anyone, either 54,800 or 50,000. 50,000 will be a bit easier to calculate. So variable cost per unit is 3.2 and number of unit is 6,000, because I have to take relevant number of units according to the total cost. So what will be the fixed cost?
Is it 30,800?
30,800. Okay. Now you have to see this thing, that this fixed cost, that is 30,800, it is equal to what? It is equal to 110%, because it includes the effect of step up, right? This fixed cost, it includes the effect of step up, so it's equal to 110%.
Wait a minute. I think so. It's 30,200.
Okay, let me see. 3.2 times 6,000. 19,200 minus 50,000. No, it's 30,800. You are right. 30,800 is the right answer. So
Okay.
now this thing is important, okay? Now this 30,800 fixed cost, it includes the step up element, right? Because after 5,500 units, fixed cost is equal to 110% because it includes the effect of 10% step up, right? So
Yeah.
now you need to remember this thing. Now the requirement of the question is what? You have to calculate total cost at an activity level of 5,000 units.
5,000.
So my question to you is that, is there a step up of 10% in the activity level of 5,000 units?
No.
No, because the step up comes after 5,500 units. So it
Yeah.
means that for calculation of 5,000 units, I have to see the fixed cost. I have to take the fixed cost without step up element. I have to take the fixed cost which does not include the effect of step up. Okay. So now how will
Okay.
I take it? Now this 30,800, it's equal to 110%. And now I need to remove that 10% step up. Now how will I remove it? How will I remove it? I will say that this 30,800, it was equal to 110%, right? So I will divide it
Yeah.
with 110. It will give me the answer of 1%. And because I require the fixed cost 100% without step up, so I will multiply it with 100. So tell me what will be the answer of fixed cost?
It's 28,000.
28,000. So this 28,000 fixed cost, it is 100% fixed cost and it does not include the step up element. While this 30,800 fixed cost, it includes the step up element. Okay.
Okay.
Is this point clear to you?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Now finally we will do the requirement of the question. The formula for total cost was fixed cost plus variable cost per unit times number of units. So tell me what will be the fixed cost you will taking. You need to calculate the total cost at 5,000 units. So what will be the fixed cost?
28,000.
Exactly. Now, if in the question he would have asked you about tell me the fixed cost as 7,000 units, for example, then what fixed cost would you take?
Uh, for 7,000, then 30,800.
Exactly. Yes, that's the point. This thing you need to remember. So now variable cost per unit, it's same. What is the variable cost per unit is 3.2. And what will be the number
It's
of units?
uh 5,000.
Yes, 5,000. So calculate it and tell me the answer.
It's 44,000.
44,000. So 44,000 will be your right answer. Clear?
Okay. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, so this is the high-low method with stepped fixed cost. Now let's move on to the next one. Here he has done this. It's 44,000. Now, high-low method with changes in variable cost per unit. Now, what if in the exam or if the exam question or in the exam he asked you that you have to use high-low method, but he told you that the variable cost per unit is same up to this activity level, and above this activity level the variable cost will either increase or decrease. Then how will you do the how will you use the high-low method? So the concept is exactly same. In this question, in this when there is change in variable cost per unit, you need to choose the activity levels where the variable cost remains unchanged. Okay, remains unchanged means that either it is with the increase or decrease, or either it's without decrease. Okay, so exactly the same concept you have to use that you have used above. So let's do it with an example. Now please read the example.
The following information relates to the manufacture of product LL. Output uh, 200 units and the cost for 200 is 7,000, and 300 units and the cost for 300 is 8,000,
Yes.
and for 400 units and the cost is 8,600. For output volumes above 350 units, the variable cost per unit falls by 10%. Note this falls applies to all units, not just the excess above 350.
And what is the
Required
requirement?
estimate the cost of producing 450 units of product.
Yes, you have to calculate the cost of 450 units. So exactly the same concept. Now you have to choose those two activity levels in which variable cost remains unchanged. So can you tell me what are those two activity levels that you will be taking?
Is it 200 and 300?
Exactly. Because in 200 and 300, there is no fall of variable cost per unit. Okay. So it means that variable cost per unit is same in these two activity levels. So you will use the variable cost per unit formula with the help of these cost and output levels. Okay. So cost 8,000 units 300, cost 7,000 units 200. So it will be 8,000 minus 7,000 and 300 minus 200. Can you please tell me what is the variable
It's
cost?
$10.
It's 10.
10.
Now I will calculate the fixed cost. The total cost I will take, for example, if I'm taking 8,000 minus 10, I will use the activity level of 300.
300.
So the fixed cost will be 5,000. Now I need to
Okay.
calculate total cost at 450 units. And you know that variable cost per unit falls after 350 units. So it means that if I
Yeah,
have to calculate the cost at 450 units, my variable cost will fall by 10%. So if my variable cost was
yeah,
10 below 350 units, then above 350 units, it will fall by 10%. So it will be only 90%. So 90% of 10 will be 9. So the variable cost per unit I will be taking for excess above 350, for excess or above 350 units, it will be 9. Okay. And for below 350 units, it would be
okay.
10. So I will calculate total cost. Fixed cost is 5,000. I need to calculate total cost at 4,500 units. So plus what is the variable cost per unit? What will be you taking variable cost per unit?
It's 9.
It will be 9. The reason?
Because it's fall by 10 percentage.
Yes, after 350
450
unit.
units.
Yes, exactly. You are right. So 9 times 450. So multiply it and tell me what will be the answer.
It's 950.
954. It's 5,000 and 450 times 9. 450 times 9 will give you 4,050 plus 5,000, 9,050.
Oh, sorry. I just subtracted it.
No, no,
Sorry.
you have to add it. You have to add it.
It's 9050.
So 9,050 will be your answer. Okay, clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, so here he has also done this. So it's 9,050.